Coming up today on LinkedIn News Live. The pandemic has forced many Americans to reconsider their finances, not just their spending habits, but insurance, wills, and investments too. What can you do to ensure that your bank account is airtight as we progress through the crisis? Carrie Schwab will join us to share her insights on managing your money when the future is this uncertain. That and today's poll coming up. I'm Devin Banerjee, in for Caroline Fairchild. Welcome to LinkedIn News Live, where the business conversation begins. It's Monday, September 28th. Here's a quick look at the top stories professionals are talking about today. More wildfires are erupting in California, spurred by dry winds and hot weather in the Napa-Sonoma area. The blazes are prompting new evacuations as thousands of residents were forced to flee late last night and early Monday morning. High winds are expected to continue through tonight. Can't go to school? Go to Tel Aviv. Israel is seeing an influx of gap year students who are opting to travel instead of starting the school year remote, according to the Wall Street Journal. Israel is one of the few countries still accepting travelers from the US, making it an attractive option for students. They're arriving even as the country is entering its second nationwide lockdown. And Fortune 100 companies are committing $3.3 billion to fight racism and inequality, according to an analysis by Axios. Since the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis earlier this year, companies including Citigroup, Costco, and IBM are pushing funding toward issues such as closing the racial wealth gap and supporting minority communities. Critics say the amount is just a drop in the bucket. Collectively, the Fortune 100 companies made $569 billion in profits last year. For more stories like these, be sure to check out the news module to the right of your LinkedIn feed, or if you're on mobile, click into the search box. Now, we've been polling professionals on the LinkedIn news page, and we want to hear from you. Have you felt financially stressed as a result of the pandemic? For example, are you finding that you're saving more, spending less, or thinking about retirement differently? Let us know your thoughts. And if you answered yes to any of the above, you're one of the millions of Americans reconsidering their finances during this pandemic and economic downturn. Fortunately for us, we're joined today by the perfect voice to help you navigate these important decisions responsibly. Carrie Schwab is a leading advocate for financial literacy and one of America's most trusted sources for financial advice. She is Senior Vice President at Charles Schwab, and she has advised 2 White House administrations on financial capability policy. Carrie, welcome to LinkedIn News Live.
Thanks for having me, Devin.
So Carrie, nearly 9 in 10 Americans say the pandemic is impacting their personal finances, and a majority of them report stress in their day-to-day lives as a result. For those experiencing financial anxiety, where should they start? What are some of the first steps they should be taking?
Yeah, keep in mind, you're absolutely right. So many people are feeling so much stress, and I don't think people really realize that stress gets in the way of your physical health and even your work productivity. So it's definitely something we need to attend to. And we only have so much bandwidth. So it's no wonder it's all going on. So here's a couple of strategies. The first is make sure you know where you stand financially. How much money do you have? How much do you owe? And if you don't already have a financial plan, which by the way, you do not have to be wealthy to have a financial plan, but it's a step-by-step process that helps you achieve your goals and also weather the storms such as we're feeling today. The other is automate your savings and automate your payments. That way, it takes that, to-do off your list. And then right now with the market volatility, we're benefiting from dollar cost averaging when we're saving and investing in our 401k. So that's actually not a bad thing because over the long term, the price that we pay for our investments is lower. So the dollar cost averaging is a good thing. And then also get help. Stay connected to people, get financial professional help. And then a couple of other tidbits. We just did an article together, Ariana Huffington and myself, about how to reduce stress and a couple of other thoughts. Do not look at the stock market multiple times during the day. Investing is a long-term endeavor, and the market will always go up and down. And then lastly, put your phone away at a certain time at night, say 7:30 or 8. I know I have to do that for myself. Otherwise, I'm wired for the rest of the night.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Very difficult to do, but I agree. It can have a lot of positive impacts. I want to just give a shout out to some of those joining us in the stream. Diana from Colorado, Dolores from Dallas, Christine from Chicago, Wendy from Los Angeles, Ben from Utah. Thank you all so much for joining us. Several of you have already noted that you are feeling some financial stress. And so we're hoping that Carrie can help you with that today.
Yeah.
Carrie, I want to home in on those who have unfortunately been furloughed or laid off. You know, the recovery in the US job market appears to have kind of lost momentum this month. New claims for unemployment benefits have reversed
Yeah.
their decline, and we're seeing them stubbornly quite high. So, for those who have specifically been furloughed or laid off, what steps should they be taking right now?
Yeah, and so many people have furloughed, like you said, and it's tough. And I think for those who have, just know you're not alone. I know so many people have lost their jobs, and my heart reaches out to all those who have been impacted. A couple of things people should do is, again, assess where you are financially. Just get a hold of where you are. Believe it or not, so many people just sort of ignore their finances, put their head in the sand, and never really look and see where they stand. So that's first and foremost. What money do you have to rely on? The other is reach out to your loan service providers, your student loan providers, your mortgage, your landlords. Believe it or not, there's so many services out there to delay payments, especially for federal student loans. We don't have to pay until well, technically October, but hopefully that will continue. And any payment to student loans now goes straight to principal. So that's a really good option. The other is look at schwabmoneywise.com. We have a whole COVID-19 page for anybody with all the resources that are available. And then again, don't go it alone. Get help. And going back to the service providers and so forth, if you don't tell them what's going on, they can't provide you help as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Andrew in the stream asking about long-term financial plans. You just provided some great advice for short-term fixes, the first steps people should be taking. Carrie, let's talk a little bit about planning for retirement. We have seen, including from Schwab research, that saving enough money to comfortably retire, or even retire at all, is the number one source of stress today among people with access to those 401k plans. Talk to us about ways to optimize the usage of retirement vehicles like 401ks right now.
Well, first of all, most companies, not all, but a lot of companies do provide an employee match. A lot, provide 50 cents or even double match your savings. So do not walk away from that. Very least, take advantage of that match. And I understand that some people, it feels, very, it takes away from your day-to-day expenses, but away would benefit. And just know that the younger you are, the easier it is. It's so important for somebody in their 20s to just start saving 10% of their income. And if they do that for the rest of their lives, they should have a relatively comfortable retirement. But unfortunately, if you do wait till your 30s, you have to save 20% of your income. And then if you wait till your 40s, 30%. So it's really important, again, to assess your day-to-day expenditures. Have you ever sat down and list everything that you spend on, say, for a month's time, and then bucket each of those expenditures by essential and non-essential? And that's a great opportunity for you to really assess, do I need to spend on those particular things? And I don't mean to deny, having fun in your life. You absolutely have to have that. But sometimes we do spend mindlessly, especially with credit cards. But retirement, unfortunately, has to be your number one priority because you can't get a student loan. You can't get a scholarship for retirement. You only have one chance really to save, and the earlier you do it, the easier it is.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're just joining us, my guest is Carrie Schwab Pomerantz, Senior Vice President at Charles Schwab and a leading advocate for financial literacy. And as I said, one of America's most trusted sources for financial advice.
Yeah.
And I just want to also remind those joining us, please ask your questions in the stream. Carrie is here to answer them. I'll do my best to pose your questions to her. Carrie, I want to stick with 401ks for just a moment because something you wrote recently was quite interesting. We are seeing some companies across the country reduce their match or maybe unfortunately eliminate their matching to that 401k program. Is that vehicle still attractive for participants if their employer match is changing right now?
Yeah, there are employers that are stopping, and hopefully it's just for a short period. I think the way to decide is your 401, does your 401k provide or your company provide the different diversified options for investing? You know, say the target funds or ETFs, so that you can create a balanced, well diversified, balanced portfolio. And if so, and it's low cost mutual funds and ETFs. If that's the case, then there's no reason not to just stick with your 401k. It's certainly a lot easier than moving something over. But for those who don't have a 401k or they don't feel that they have as many options in their 401k, a Roth IRA is a great option. Going to your financial institution, almost all of them have a IRA to choose from, and then you can invest the way that you want. But keep in mind, an IRA, you can only save so much, and the 401k allows you to save and invest even more.
So, Carrie, a few minutes ago, you were talking about budgeting our spending. And, it is a time of uncertainty, but for many people, that doesn't change the fact that they want to get married, they might want to buy a car, they might be interested in purchasing a home. When considering those major purchases or expenditures right now, what do you think is really critical to take into account?
Well, again, how much money do you have? Can you? It sort of depends on what you're going to buy. Certainly, recreational things are really popular right now. The Peloton, I'm sure boats and so forth, because we all want to be outdoors. But is it going to get in the way of saving for retirement? I mean, are you going to pay cash right out? Are you going to take a loan? And if you're taking out a loan, have you crunched the numbers? Can you afford it in your monthly expenditures? And is it taking away from saving for retirement? I mean, that's the big thing. Is how will it affect your long-term financial prospects?
If you're just joining us, again, my guest is Carrie Schwab Pomeranz, Senior Vice President at Charles Schwab and one of the foremost authorities on personal financial management in the US. Carrie, we're receiving several questions about something you have written about, and I know you're very passionate about, which is how women in particular should be thinking about their personal finances right now. I want to thank Caroline and Amy for asking some of those questions in the stream. Carrie, you've written recently that events and trends right now should be a wake-up call for women as they think about their personal finances going forward. Share with us what professional women in particular should be considering as they plan for their future right now.
Yeah, I have so much to say about that, Devin. I've been very passionate my whole career. I was conducting workshops in my 20s for women because unfortunately, historically, we have just not been as engaged in our finances, and culturally and structurally, we are sort of left behind relative to our male counterparts. As we all know that we earn less money, we live longer, and we tend to go in and out of the workforce. So what that means is that we have to save more for a longer term or longer time of retirement. So it's so important for us to be very disciplined and involved with our finances. Let me share something. This has been my call out. This is my recent call to action. Is that at Schwab, we just conducted a study among 16 to 25-year-olds, and what we found is that the young men, twice as many young men had investment accounts than young women. And we asked them, if we were to give you $1,000, what would you do with it? And again, twice as many men said that they would invest it versus young women. And what I know from my many years of research is that we still talk to our daughters differently than our sons when it comes to money. With our sons, we talk about debt, estate planning, the stock market. With our daughters, we talk about budgeting, household expenditures, savings, And those are really important concepts. But here in America, it's the stock market is what allows you to get those returns to outperform inflation. And so we've got to make it a priority to talk to our daughters just the same and make them feel really comfortable with investing.
Yeah, you make a great point, Carrie, that actually this time and the events unfolding are a great opportunity for us to speak with our children about what's happening and how that affects finances. We saw that as well from Susie Orman, also on LinkedIn, writing about that in particular last week.
Yeah.
Carrie, I want to bring you a question from a member in the stream. Amy is asking specifically about home buying and at what phase of her life or of life people can be thinking about home buying. So Amy's asking in particular for a woman in their late 40s to purchase a home right now with retirement still in mind. What kind of considerations should she have in mind?
Well, I'm going to take a step back because let me share with you sort of how to think about your savings. And I'll get to your, the question specifically, Amy, but to be financially sound, there's a couple things that need to happen. And I sound like a broken record. Sorry, Devin. But the first is save in your retirement up to the company match at least. That's your first priority, if, assuming you have extra money. The second is pay off your non-deductible high interest debt, AKA credit card. Think about it. We pay 17% on a credit card, and that so easily could go to our savings. And then last, have 3 to 6 months of cash to cover essential expenditures. And if your job is a little bit more tenuous, or maybe you're going to be retiring soon, you want more cash. So that's first and foremost. So after that, and after you're really fully maxing out with your retirement, that's when you can think about a home or even a child's college education. So it feels, it doesn't feel intuitive at all, but it's just, again, retirement, we can't get a loan for it. So that's first and foremost. The other thing, Amy, is here's some other rules of thumb, and it kind of depends. I know in California, my friends think I'm crazy, but this is what certified financial planners will tell you. Don't take any more, or your debt should not be or your mortgage should not be more than 28% of your pre-tax income. So 28% of your income going to the mortgage or the interest and principal. However, another rule of thumb is don't have more than 36% of total debt, and that would be credit cards and auto loans and so forth. So if you're pretty debt free, you can go up a little more than 28%. So those are some things to think about on your own, with your finances.
Absolutely, and hopefully that also helps. Madura in our stream asking, is this a good time to buy a home? Madura, obviously it depends on your own financial situation, and you can apply those rules of thumb that Carrie just mentioned. It seems like, though, a lot of members and a lot of viewers are focused on the housing market right now, Carrie. We are seeing mortgage rates at record lows, the 30-year fixed average below 3%. Housing market has quite strong throughout this pandemic. I'm just curious, at a very high level, what your take is on the housing market. And obviously those heuristics you shared with us do help, but what's your take on the housing market?
Yeah, I think first of all, it depends on where you are. I'll be honest with you. I really thought the housing market was going to tank, with the pandemic, but instead everybody is just running to buy a house, buy bigger houses. We want more space, especially on the coast. Not sure in the middle of the country as much, and housing is really high right now. But none of us can predict exactly what's going to happen to the market. I've had enough houses when I was younger to know that A, you don't want to be house poor, and B, you don't want a house to be your investment. You want to look at it as your home. So if this is the home you think you're going to be in for a while, by the way, you should at least try to be in it for like 5 years or so. Otherwise, it might not be financially make total sense. You have to crunch the numbers with a financial expert. But anyway, I think just right now it's got to be a place that you want to live. It cannot be seen as an investment that's going to go way up and cover your retirement. You will be dissatisfied if that's the way you're going into it. And again, can you afford it? Can you afford it on your income, on your monthly income, and taking on that debt?
Absolutely. Well, Carrie, this has been so helpful for our members and our viewers. I want to remind our viewers, or actually mention for the first time during the show, that Carrie is also the author of the Ask Carrie newsletter on LinkedIn. It's one of my favorite newsletters across all of LinkedIn. Please find it on Carrie's page and subscribe to be notified each time she publishes going forward. Carrie, before we leave you, anything on these topics that you didn't mention that you think is important to touch on as people think about their financial security and their plans going forward?
Yeah, I would just say, and I hate using this word, I've got it, Devin, you can help me find a different word, but it's all about planning, financial planning. Again, as I mentioned, it's a step-by-step process to help you, achieve your financial goals. And it also helps you weather through these ups and downs. In particular, a financial plan addresses your savings and investment, your debt, your estate planning and your wills, and even your insurance. Are you well protected? So if something does happen, you do get sick. We're in a pandemic, health pandemic right now. So everything is covered. And when we have these disasters in our country, you will feel confident that you are heading in the right place, and you can, as I mentioned, weather the storm.
Absolutely. Again, I want to thank our viewers, including Roseanne, who just threw in a question, but unfortunately we have to leave it there. Carrie Schwab Pomerantz, thank you so much for joining us. This has been extremely helpful.
Oh, good. I hope so. Thanks, Devin.
And thank you to all of our viewers for joining us. Before we let you go, let's take a quick look at our poll from the LinkedIn news page. And looking at people feeling financially stressed as a result of the pandemic, it's clear that a majority, almost 3 in 5, 60%, are feeling that financial stress. We certainly hope that Carrie's tips and advice today will help you out in that regard. Tomorrow on LinkedIn News Live, don't miss Caroline Fairchild. She'll be speaking with the founders of 2 different nonprofits on reducing recidivism rates by offering jobs to ex-felons. We hope the show was helpful for you. I'm Devin Banerjee. Thank you again for joining.